The film begins with a man carrying a gun into a train station. Another man with a gun approaches him as he walks toward a woman. The camera's angle shows 2:22 on the clock. Dylan rides his bike to the airport in order to carry out his duties as an air traffic controller. Utilizing his expertise and abilities, he prevents a collision between two adjacent aircraft. His friends go out to the bar in the evening to celebrate his upcoming birthday, which is in 2 weeks. He is left alone with his former partner, Sandy. She gives him a ticket to an aerial ballet performance. He invites her to come with him, but she is already seeing someone. Dylan resumes his regular daily routine the following day. At 2:22, however, he notices a flashing light all around the tower's room. This distracts him from informing one of the pilots that the runway is not clear for landing. Everyone tenses up as Dylan commands the pilots and prevents the planes from colliding. One of them had a girl named Sarah aboard. Everyone exclaims in relief as Dylan attempts to comprehend what has just occurred. Since he nearly killed 900 people, he has been suspended for 4 weeks. Dylan notices patterns appearing on the ceiling of the subway just before a window smashes. At that moment, the clock was at 2:22. Dylan attends the aerial ballet performance that his ex has purchased tickets to later that evening. He notices Sarah entering and is captivated by her beauty. Throughout the show, he observes her enjoying her time before their gazes meet. He strikes up a conversation with her. He offers her a drink, but she prefers to leave the place with him. They talk as they eat dinner. He tells her about graduating with a pilot degree, but being too afraid of flying to ever become one. She also discusses her work in an art gallery and her former dream of becoming a dancer. They talk all night, and Dylan mentions a casualty at work the other day. She asks him what plane was coming in and confirms that she was on it. When she notices him feeling bad about almost killing her, she emphasizes that he saved her. They are forced to leave the restaurant when it closes. Walking through the streets, the two form a bond because of the coincidence. They also have the impression that they have known each other for quite some time. Dylan witnesses a biker kid argue with a driver the following day. He observes his surroundings for patterns on the subway and notices things becoming chaotic at 2:22. The light flickers and the clock begins to malfunction. Dylan arrives at Sarah's art gallery with a wilted flower. He asks her for dinner again, but since it is too early, they go to the park instead. Sarah tells him about her childhood as a dancer before breaking a bone and being unable to dance again. He tries to lift her spirits by starting a song and inviting her to join him in a dance. She is hesitant at first, but eventually joins him in dancing. They exchange a passionate kiss before the scene shifts to their bedroom. They also spend some quality time together. Dylan inquires as to whom Sarah's necklace belongs. She tells him it is from her ex-boyfriend, who also works as an artist at the gallery where she works. He asks her when her birthday is, and is surprised to learn that they share the same date. The sound of a car accident outside the window interrupts their conversation. Dylan looks at the time and sees that it is 2:22. He realizes it is the 3rd day in a row that this has happened to him. Sarah is at the art gallery with her boyfriend Jonas, who suspects she is in love and tells her that whoever he is extremely fortunate. Sarah dismisses it and texts Dylan, saying she hopes to see him soon. Dylan is in a cab on his way to the subway, but his driver claims to know a shortcut and takes him down another road he is unfamiliar with. He requests that the driver not go in a different direction, but the language barrier leads the driver to believe he is being yelled at. This irritates Dylan, who demands that the driver immediately stop the cab. He does, but then a speeding van collides with the cab, flipping it over. People gather around and lend a hand. Fortunately, both survive. Dylan has flashbacks to the gun in the subway scene from earlier. He looks at a nearby clock and sees that it happened at 2:22. Sarah returns home to care for Dylan, who is obsessed with the patterns he sees on the subway. There is always a man reading a specific newspaper, kids crossing the court with one of them dropping something, and a pregnant woman under the clock. They occurred 3 days in a row, all at 2:22 p.m. Dylan then begins to take note of any small seats that catch his eye in an attempt to identify patterns. When he tells his friend about his problems, he only receives sympathy. The following day, he stands on the rooftop, waiting for the first pattern to appear, which is a drip from the sky. It lands on his notebook, which he shuts in surprise. When he opens it again, he discovers a dead bug, which was the next thing that would happen. He chooses to visit Jonas's art gallery exhibition. Sarah notices him and attempts to approach him before Jonas whisks her away to the grand piece that the audience has been waiting for. Dylan joins them for a look. After Sarah introduces the two, The art piece begins with a hologram of New York City, with Jonas narrating in the background. Dylan is confused when the hologram changes to the subway, and he sees the same patterns displayed in front of him again. He accuses Jonas of following him and messing with his mind the entire time. Jonas claims he does not understand what Dylan is saying. Dylan begins to become physically aggressive as the guests watch in shock. Sarah cuts them off just as the hologram controller man manages to halt the performance. One of the guests believes it is a skit to close the show and remarks on Jonas's genius for including the murder victims in his work. Dylan and Jonas are perplexed by this because they do not understand what he is saying. Sarah takes Dylan out of the gallery, disappointed. He texts her an apology but still decides to return to the gallery. He sneaks in and sees Sarah console Jonas. This time, he decides to walk away. While working out at home, he learns that the energetic force of the exploding Hamlin will be at its peak in the next 2 days. A rope snapped while he was working out on it. He tries to tie it back to the ceiling and finds a leather bag inside. The bag contains a passport belonging to a man named Jake Redmond. There are also letters mailed to Dylan's current address. Dylan walks into a tunnel full of illustrations of the subway murder. He is approached by a man who claims to have been anticipating him. He starts telling Dylan the story. He points to a man with a gun who resembles Jake's passport picture from earlier. Before being shot down by cops, the murderer killed a woman and a detective in broad daylight. The murderer is then revealed to be Jake Redmond, who committed the crime out of jealousy over a girl named Evelyn. He delivers the letter to Evelyn's sister, who informs him about her sister, a talented singer who performed around town. That is how she met Jake, who was always bad news and whom everyone warned her about. Noah Marks, the police detective who died alongside her, also had feelings for her. Dylan inquires as to whether she was on the subway to abandon Jake. Her sister goes on to tell him that the detective came to talk to Evelyn one night about all the things she did not know about Jake, such as how he killed a police informant. Evelyn refused to listen, believing Jake to be her soulmate. Her sister informs Dylan that Evelyn and Jake have the same birthday. He had previously discovered that Jake, Sarah, and he shared the same birthday. Evelyn's sister gives Jake the letters that she left behind. Dylan continues to leave voicemails for Sarah in the hopes that she will return his calls. Meanwhile, Sarah is in the art gallery, wondering what inspired Jonas to do the Grand Central Subway of all things. He says it is because the subway is a must-see in New York, and it was on his mind long before she met Dylan. Sarah goes to see him. He tells Sarah about his discovery of the Jake and Evelyn story, and how they are still the same people they were a lifetime ago. He tells her that she wrote all the letters Evelyn wrote, while he wrote the ones Jake wrote. She snaps at him, claiming that if he only looks for the patterns, they will continue to appear. Dylan, on the other hand, continues to be stubborn. He ends their relationship in an effort to save her life the next day, which happens to be their birthday. Sarah leaves to visit Jonas in his art gallery, where he is editing her face into the pregnant woman's hologram. She asks him why he took the subway again. He avoids the question and eventually asks her to leave the town with him, assuming Dylan is not safe. Dylan stands at the edge of the rooftop, contemplating suicide. As the stars catch his attention, he reconsiders and returns inside, where he begins to see the patterns from a different perspective. He concludes by saying, "I am seeing the day I die." Sarah and Jonas board a cab to leave the following day. Dylan visits Jonas's apartment to confirm that the patterns are still present. He sneaks into the house anyway, and as he goes through Jonas's belongings, he discovers hundreds of pictures of Sarah plastered all over the walls. In addition, he notices an empty gun box. He realizes that Jonas is Mark, the detective in this story. Dylan rushes to the subway, where Jonas and Sarah are going because their flight was canceled. Jonas and Sarah fight on the subway because she refuses to tell him she loves him. Dylan appears on the subway and captures Jake's attention. Jake is enraged by his appearance, which he believes Sarah forced him to attend. He rushes towards him with a gun, but Dylan takes cover for Sarah and is shot. But the clock strikes 2:23, and the two are relieved to have made it so far. Dylan, Noah, and Sarah are shown as parents at the end of the film, and Dylan checks his time to demonstrate that the patterns have stopped. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.